So yeah, for those of you who missed it, there was a crash between the Army helicopter Black Hawk and commercial flight in Washington. It happened on Wednesday, 29th around 9 p.m. And there's some new footage from what happened. We're gonna use the CNN in this case. I know it's a legacy media, but it's not so much of politics. And honestly, who cares about politics in this case, right? So let's see the whole footage.
These videos obtained exclusively by CNN show previously unseen angles of the collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army Black Hawk helicopter. In the first video, the Black Hawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the aircraft before the two collide, causing a mid-air. The Black Hawk.
Sorry, let's do it one more time. So this is the commercial airplane carrying, I think, 60 passengers. And then the little black dot that's gonna approach it is the Army helicopter Black Hawk. So yeah, let's watch it again. It's pretty crazy. Come on, dude, can I close this? Yeah, here we go.
Can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river. In a second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other. After the collision and subsequent explosion, the airliner can be seen spinning into the water.
Whoa.
And the Black Hawk is also seen falling into the water.
The FAA's diversity.
That's crazy. Yeah, like I don't understand how the helicopter didn't see the aircraft coming. Because yeah, it's still, I understand that it's approaching from the side, right? So let's say from, what would it be, 3 o'clock? But it's still ahead of it. Like, you still have to see it, right? I know aircrafts are fast. So yeah, just for the record, I used to work as a flight attendant for 3 years. And the most dangerous parts of the flight is takeoff and landing. Because there's the highest probability of the shit going wrong, and in this case that's what happened, right? The aircraft was landing, and it's just brutal that you're on the flight. I don't know where it was coming from, I don't know how long the flight was, but you're about to land finally, and this shit happens. Like, that's so sad. And yeah, like, I had some incidents when I was working, when we had a near hit, and the aircrafts, when it's two commercial aircrafts, they're equipped with the system that sends one aircraft to go pretty much, I don't know if it's right or left, but one aircraft goes, let's say, right up, and the other one that would about to hit it goes opposite side and down. And I had that happen to me, which was crazy. It was like unexpected, and no one really notices it, right? Unless you know what happened. And yeah, so it's unfortunately not that uncommon. Then there's something called rejected takeoff and rejected landing. My wife experienced rejected landing. And what happens in that case, and that's something that could have happened here, and it would probably save someone's life, is that you're about to land, you get a permission to land, but the runway is obstructed. Let's say the aircraft that landed before you is not as fast as they expected, or it's still occupying runway, so there's a potential that you're gonna crash into the aircraft, right? So they call reject landing, and it's pretty much you almost touch the runway, but then you just go back up. And yeah, I don't know how that would work for Boeing 737 MAX, or which one was it that had issues with takeoffs. Like, I definitely wouldn't want to do it on that one back then. But yeah, that's the thing that happens. Same thing, rejected takeoff, like maybe the aircraft that was supposed to take off ahead of you, because it's usually line of the aircrafts. Like you have 5 aircrafts in the queue or something ridiculous like that. So maybe they didn't take off on time, and you have to like press the brakes like crazy. Like it's kind of normal known stuff that's happening while flying. Like I said, I was flight attendant for 3 years. I visited 52 countries, some of them multiple times. So if I did a little bit under 100 flights, and during that time I experienced only that near collision, which is scary, right? But the systems were in place that prevented it. However, I have no idea how that works with Army helicopter, right? Like it's not 2 commercial aircrafts, but it's literally Army helicopter and a freaking aircraft. And yeah, like obviously they're trying to blame someone, and I mean right now they're investigating who made a mistake. Was it air traffic controller, or was it the pilot of the Black Hawk? Yo, Brooklyn, what's up? Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, so they're just trying to figure out who made a mistake, and it's in the upcoming video, so I'm not going to talk about it yet. We're going to comment on this. Now we're going to see Trump talking about DEI and the hiring of air traffic controllers and how that might have affected. So yeah, let's listen to it. Of course, it's CNN, so it's probably going to be highly edited, and it's going to show only the worst parts of what he said. Maybe once we are done with this reaction, we can see what he actually said. As you know, Trump, it was obviously longer than 2 minutes. But yeah, let's go with CNN on this one for now.
Diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration, but they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent.
He had theories about what may have.
Okay, so DEI in this case, I don't really agree with President Trump about this. I also used to work as a rail traffic controller. Obviously, it's not the same like air traffic. But the thing is, it's still safety critical position. And for this one, you need to pass some medical tests, hearing test, eye test, obviously drug tests, some mental issues you need to disclose. And I frankly almost didn't pass because of my hearing, because one of my ears is really bad, and I was close to not passing. But yeah, they're looking into every medical conditions, like are you prone to having a heart attack, how are you handling stress. So I don't really believe that air traffic controller position, which is safety critical position, that the issue would be DEI hiring. They might hire them based on DEI, don't get me wrong, obviously, but then you have long training. Even once you're trained, let's say for the rail traffic controller, once I'm trained, I have to qualify on the territory, which is certain amount of hours. Then I have to have some solo shifts. And during this training, and even after qualifying, they will keep doing efficiency tests just to make sure that you're able to handle different situations. And if you're not able to handle it, you're suspended. So it's hard for me to believe that DEI was the issue behind this. Because yeah, even the training, like you need to pass so many tests before you even get to the real computer, to the real world, like to practice all of your knowledge, right? Like you have laws, you have procedures, all of it, and you have tests on every single one. And for the rail traffic controller, I had to pass the test with the 90% mark. 90, which is crazy. And I think I had 4 tests, 2 repeats. I mean, 2 in total. So it's not like I can repeat every test twice. No. Out of those 4 tests, I can repeat 2 of them. And only once, right? It's not like, oh, I mess up first test, I can repeat it twice. No. So again, 2 repeats. And then you have final exam, which in my case was about 400 questions. And again, passing mark, 90%, which for 400 questions is pretty decent, right? 90%. But again, 400 questions. So yeah, it's hard for me to believe that the DEI was behind this, because if someone wasn't supposed to be in this position, they would just get fired during the training. But again, I'm talking about Canada. Who knows how it is in the US, right? But in Canada, safety critical position, no one would try to put the people who are incapable to do the job into this position. So yeah, definitely I believe President Trump is right that maybe the DEI hiring is there, that for the class or training class or whatever, they will hire people based not only on the merit but on the DEI as well. But like I said, I don't believe that these people who are not supposed to be there, who are not capable of doing the job, would make it to the real world working solo. But yeah, let's continue with this video.
Caused this, that came out well before we've learned anything from the NTSB. What do you think is appropriate at this point in terms of how you think about what may have been a factor here in this crash? And is there any truth to what the president said yesterday?
I'm sorry, but I was disgusted by that entire press conference and the statements that were made for people that I depended upon throughout my career. There's the qualifications that are required for a controller are stringent, and it's a lot of work. It's at least 5 years before somebody can actually be soloed, for instance, at a particular facility, and each facility has its own difficulty level. Same thing for pilots. Pilots aren't hired. There's a specific standard for hiring pilots, whether they're black, white, purple, brown. It doesn't make any difference. Those standards have to be met, and nobody's going to get hired that doesn't meet those particular standards.
3 different things happen. First of all,
Yeah, so pretty much what I said. Well, I don't really agree with him saying nobody's gonna get hired, but obviously no one's gonna make it through the probation or through the whole program to do the actual job. Like unless you're capable of doing it safely, it's a safety critical position. So there's no way they would just let people who were hired only based on the DEI to do this job. Don't get me wrong, I bet, let's say, the TSA is probably a safety critical position as well, and I can imagine DEI hiring over there, because it's not all the safety critical positions are equal, right? Like, let's say, rail traffic controller and I don't know who else. What else? Train conductor. Both of them are safety critical positions, but as a rail traffic controller, you literally can give one extra signal and kill someone, create collision. As a conductor, obviously you can make a mistake by copying the clearance incorrectly. So there's possibility for you to mess up big time as well, but I wouldn't say it's as high as rail traffic controller. So the same thing, like comparing air traffic controller and TSA, the chances of air traffic controller making a mistake, or if he makes a mistake, it's going to be a huge one in comparison to TSA agent. Like, again, it's not safety critical position, same as, like, they're not equal. And that's why I don't believe that any DEI hiree would pass all the exams, finish the training, and then work as a fully qualified air traffic controller. That's just impossible. Like, no one's gonna risk this. So yeah, that's my opinion on the whole DEI in this case. And now we're gonna listen or watch a video from former Black Hawk helicopter pilot. So let's see what she has to say about this accident.
They only had a crew of 3. And if you're flying a visual flight plan in a crowded airspace like this, they really should have had 2 crew chiefs in the back of the helicopter to clear each side, as the pilots only have visibility from straight ahead 12 to 3 o'clock, or 12 from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So you only have visibility of the front 180 degrees. Your crew chiefs clear the back. If you only have 1 crew chief, how much can you clear? The second one.
Okay, so obviously I never even flew with helicopter. The video might be a little bit misleading, because on the video you can clearly see that there's a aircraft approaching, right? And having 180, you should still be able to see that aircraft coming from the left, or in his case coming from would it be 3 o'clock? Yeah, coming from 3 o'clock. But like she said, she's a former helicopter pilot, Black Hawk helicopter pilot, and yeah, they were understaffed. They had 3 people instead of 4 people, and obviously when you're flying around the airport, like the amount of aircrafts that are landing and taking off is incredible. It's just brutal. We're talking about pollution, but like, just sit there and you'll see what's going on over there. So yeah, definitely someone messed up over there. Hopefully the Trump will look into that as well, not just DEI, because yeah, obviously it was understaffed. So I don't know if it's some cutting in the army or whatever happened there, but not good. It could have been prevented. So far we have possibly the issue on the Black Hawk side, and Army side, they sent 1 crew less, and shit happened. But let's see what else.
And it is whether they were on night vision goggles at that time or not, it is a very cluttered airspace with a lot of lighting and the lights reflecting on the river. And so with that, it's easy to kind of get a little disoriented as far as the height. They were supposed to be at 200 feet, which is the helicopter routing in that area, and it wouldn't have been a conflict.
Well, that's scary to hear. That they can get a little bit disoriented, right? Again, like we're talking about professionals. Like, it's not like 2-week training and then you're a helicopter pilot, right? Like, night vision goggles or no, like, you should have experience. And I get that you can get distracted, but it's not just the pilot, it's 2 other people in this case. Was supposed to be 3 other people, but yeah, like, don't they have co-pilot or something like that? Because the commercial aircraft, you have a captain and a first officer, right? Someone who's going to be there to take care of the shit if it's needed and support a captain. So in this case, hearing that they can get easily disoriented, it's not good. And like she mentioned, they were supposed to be at 200 feet height, but obviously they were not. So here's another thing that points that the issue was on the side of the Black Hawk. First was shortage on the crew. Was supposed to be 4-person crew. It was only 3-person crew, and now the pilot was flying probably higher than he was supposed to. He wasn't flying at the height the air traffic controller told him to fly. So there we go. That's how shit happens, right? But let's continue.
But they were not at 200 feet. Obviously, reportedly the incident happened at around 350 to 400 feet as the airliner was descending. So that they were at the wrong height.
That's
so that's a pilot error. The first would be a policy error or choice. And then the third is air traffic control said, do you have the CRJ in sight? Well, there were two aircraft in their field of view, and actually only one was really obvious to them. And that was if you watch the video, the aircraft taking off in the foreground is probably the one they were facing, the pilot.
Yeah, like this definitely is an issue as well. Obviously, she's not saying exactly what the air traffic controller said. I don't know what the procedures are over there, but you need to be descriptive, or how would I say it? Like, you need to specifically say what you mean. Like, when I used to work as a rail traffic controller, just talking to the train just to make sure that you're talking to the correct train and you're talking about the correct other train in the clearance. So it looks something like this. Let's say we had a train with a locomotive engine, let's say 85, 86. So the way how we would call them on the radio was like, CP 8586, this is, CP 8586, CPKCRTC over, and then what they need to reply to that would be a CPKCRTC, CP 8586, right? And then you have that positive identification, so then you can talk to them about what's going on. And when we were giving them clearances, there was a part, let's say, if they're supposed to wait on the other train before they leave their siding, it would be, there's a section on the clearance, I think it's something like after, let's say 8686, and then you say 8686, like you digitize it just to make sure that they're gonna know specifically who you're talking about. So I bet there must be something like that for air traffic controllers as well. And that's what she's talking about, right? That apparently he said only like, oh, do you see the CRJ? And apparently he didn't specify where the CRJ is coming from or anything like that. But I think she's just making it sound a little bit easier. I'm not saying she's lying, but we would need to hear tapes what happened over there, and I bet the Trump administration and the people who are investigating the accident will look into it for sure.
We're facing and said, yeah, I got it. The air traffic control should have said, do you have the aircraft at 5 o'clock? So they were looking at the rear. If they had done that, the Black Hawk is maneuverable. The Black Hawk could have moved out of the way quickly. They can move on a dime and make that happen.
Out front now is my...
Yeah, this is crazy that they could have avoided it just like this. All they needed to do is have the 4-person crew as per policies, right? Or just a little bit more luck with looking to the side and realizing, oh, this aircraft's coming on us. Oh, damn, we're not at the height we're supposed to be. Boom. Or sorry, height, altitude, right? Yeah, I don't know what happened there, if they got distracted, but you heard it. They were supposed to have altitude 200 feet and they were on 350. And obviously the commercial airplane, like, they're not able to avoid Black Hawk. But the Black Hawk, it would be easy to avoid a commercial airplane. So really shitty situation. What's this video? Disabled pilot reacts to Trump's comment on deadly crash and hiring of people with disabilities. Here we go. That's gonna be full CNN propaganda right over here. So let's look into this one more time, then we kind of summarize it, and we're gonna move on.
Miles O'Brien, and obviously, Miles, you have spent a career covering this industry, covering tragedies in this industry, and you are a pilot yourself. So this investigation is in its early stages. It's honed in, obviously, on the elevation and the altitude of the helicopter, but we don't know what we don't know right now. What are your leading theories from the information we do have?
Something was happening in that.
See, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just if you look from this angle, you see the crash and you already see another aircraft flying around there. So the traffic at the airport's crazy. Like there's so many aircrafts or flights waiting to depart, like to take off, right? It's literally aircraft after aircraft. So in that case, the Black Hawk, the Army, should have followed the policy and have a freaking 4-person crew in this traffic. Like, it's crazy to me that someone made a mistake like this.
Cockpit of that Black Hawk helicopter, which may have distracted the crew, perhaps as part of the training mission. Perhaps they were having difficulty with the night vision goggles. Who knows? The cockpit voice recorder, which I'm pretty certain will be recovered and the data will come out of it, should shed a lot of light of what was happening, what distractions might have occurred. It is hard to see moving air traffic at night in a city with all those background lights, but that is still the responsibility of that crew to see and avoid traffic, and obviously that did not happen here.
No, it didn't, and there.
Well, that's why you listen to the air traffic controller and follow the instructions, right? Because they see more than you do. Like they see every aircraft approaching, every aircraft taking off, all of this. That's why they tell you to fly at a specific altitude to avoid them. And yeah, in this case, someone didn't follow the instructions, even if there's some distraction. You're still supposed to make sure that you're on the specific altitude. Like, again, I never flew in the helicopter, but I was in the cockpit of the aircraft so many times, and I was there for a landing and takeoff at least twice. 2 landings, 2 takeoffs as a part of my training as a flight attendant. And yeah, it's a critical period of the flight. During landing and during takeoff, no one's supposed to talk to the pilot or to the first officer either. Like there's a radio silence between the crew and the cockpit. And yeah, like obviously the Black Hawk wasn't landing, but if you're passing through that area, there's no excuse for being distracted unless someone's attacking you, right? Or something like that. It's crazy.
There was just no time. I mean, as we said, the slides weren't deployed. There was no, at that point, you're low enough to the ground, texting. I mean, there was nothing, just a silence, and clearly so sudden. President Trump has had blame for this in several quarters. He had referenced DEI initiatives. He also specifically referenced the FAA hiring people with severe disabilities. Let me just play for you exactly what he said, Miles.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
So, Miles, he then went.
Okay, I really hate how they actually muted whatever Trump said after that, right? And obviously they're, like I said, they might be hiring people with some mental disorders, but these people won't pass the training. And if they do, if they pass whole training, qualify on the territory, they are qualified air traffic controller, what are we talking about? I don't really believe that in that case it's DEI hiring, right? Like, I'm all against DEI, But I refuse to believe that on this position, anyone who got hired because of DEI reasons would make it to actually qualify as an air traffic controller. It's just ridiculous to think. And if we look at the Black Hawk crew, these guys are from Army, right? So I don't think there's any DEI in the Army. So yeah, this might be a little bit false narrative from President Trump. Of course, FAA is gonna hire some DEI or is gonna do DEI hiring, but probably not for a position like this.
Went on to specify that one of the disabilities he was referring to is missing extremities. Now, this is something actually you know about. You can speak to personally. You're a licensed pilot. You lost an arm in an accident. So I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, number one, Aaron, let's not forget what it must be like to have lost a loved one and hear this whole, literally with your loved one still underwater. Here it turned into this weird political thing. But as personally, as someone who was a pilot, lost my arm, and went through the process of getting recertified to fly, I can attest to you that I went through every hoop and got over every bar, an able.
Okay, so obviously, again, I'm not a pilot, but it's safety critical position. And I don't think that's a good idea. Like, it sucks. I feel for the guy that he lost his arm, but now you have one arm. If something happens, if some shit goes down, like, are you gonna be able to do your job with an arm? I don't know, you cut one of your arms, some freaky accident during landing, you don't have other arm to take over, right? So I don't really agree with this, and I feel it's unsafe. Like, yeah, I know it's unfair, but let's say I can't do certain jobs because of my eyesight. Am I bummed about it? Yes, I am, but I understand that it's a safety risk, and so is the pilot with one arm. Even in the emergency situation, let's say he managed to land, but how useful he's gonna be during evacuation with one arm comparing to the pilot with both arms. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be insensitive, but it's a safety position, and for the safety of all the passengers, and you might have 400 passengers on board, I don't think it's a safe idea to have a pilot who is missing the arm. Sorry, I don't want to, maybe unpopular opinion, but let's not pretend like I'm the only one thinking it, right? It's like having a firefighter with one arm trying to save you from the car crash. Like, not the ideal situation.
Bodied individual would in order to be recertified to fly. The FAA simply does not.
Again, he mentions able-bodied individual. As a flight attendant, we always choose ABPs, able-bodied person, who were pretty much people that we would ask to help us during evacuation. Let's say the aircraft door gets stuck and you need to use some force, right? So you call your ABP to help you. You even ask them, like, before the flight, like, oh, are you willing to be my ABP? There are the issues with certain people sitting next to the emergency door as well, right? Because you're not supposed to have disabled people sitting next to the emergency door, because then it can put the whole evacuation in jeopardy, because it might create more complication. And in this case, would I choose someone who's missing arm as my ABP? I'm sorry, but no. I need someone who's going to be able to do as much as they can. And it sounds bad. I hate that I'm saying it, but unfortunately there are things in this life that are just given. Like, the strongest will survive, and in the emergency situation you want the strongest people. Sorry. Yeah, like I said, I feel awkward talking about it, but it is what it is.
Forsake safety in order to include disabilities in the system. I am part of the aviation community because I persevered through that, and it's an affront to me and all other disabled people to allow that statement to come into play. So it's unfortunate in the context of a terrible tragedy relative to the tragedy these families face. I guess it's not as big a deal, but it is a gut punch to those of us who are disabled and aviators.
Here's a reality check, and we're going to tick through 3 things that he said. The first one was,
Oh my god, they're still going on it again. Trump's claims about disabled air traffic workers are misleading. So let's see what's this one about, but then we're gonna move on. I know I said it before, but yeah.
Was that former presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden undermined aviation safety standards with DEI hiring practices at the FAA. That is just misleading. Now, we should note that this administration recently wiped the federal websites, many of them, of any mention.
Okay, I'm sorry. How can you say it's misleading? Obviously, I said my opinion about air traffic controller, that no one would get qualified unless they would be able to do safely their job. And I'm talking from my Canadian experience, but I can't believe that they would jump through all of the hoops if they were just the DEI hirees. They might get hired, but they're not going to get qualified. So that's thing number one, or the first argument. But then we have second argument, where we just watched the video of the pilot who's missing arm. I mean, what are we talking about? I'm here talking about safety critical positions and how it wouldn't fly, and then we have pilot with one arm who's flying. It's like, again, I don't want to be mean. Let's talk about basketball. Let's talk about Kobe Bryant when he dislocated his shoulder. What did he do in this case? He used his other hand. He was shooting with his left hand. What happens if this pilot will injure his hand or his arm? He doesn't have another one to use. Obviously, there's a first officer. Don't get me wrong, I believe he's an incredible person with incredible experience, and there's definitely position for him to do in the aviation industry, but it shouldn't be as a pilot. Like, that's a safety issue. And CNN giving us a video from a disabled pilot and then saying how Trump talking about DEI, there's no evidence for this. That sounds kind of ridiculous. Like I said, I don't agree with Trump saying that air traffic controllers were DEI hirees, but yeah, like it's definitely kind of thin ice. It's really on the border, and now knowing that the pilot with one arm got his license to fly the aircraft, it kind of makes me feel that who knows how it is with the air traffic controllers, right?
Mention of DEI, but when you do an Internet Archive search, the FAA's DEI policy has actually been on the agency's website and actually been in effect since at least 2013, and certainly during the first Trump administration. So he's trying to link it to these 2 past presidents, but it in fact was very much in effect and on the.
Wait, wasn't Obama before Trump? Like, what the hell is she talking about? Like, yeah, Trump didn't get rid of this out of this order or whatever. But he's not the one who established it, and he said that it's since Obama, right? So what the heck is she talking about?
Website during his first presidency, and then this idea of lowered standards. I should point out that despite today's air disaster, Jim, the FAA points out that they have some 45,000 flights that land and take off, traveling with 2.9 million people every single day, and this sort of incident is incredibly rare. So the United States is still considered the gold standard when it comes to aviation safety. But I want to go to the next thing that he said. The president said, this was the claim, and I'm quoting, the FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workplace. They want them in so that they can be air traffic controllers. That claim is simply misleading. He also went on to say
Again, I agree with this, that it's misleading, that it's not true, but I'm coming from the common sense and from being a former rail traffic controller, and let me tell you, they might get hired as a DEI hiree, but they're not going to go through the training, they're not going to pass the exams, they're not going to qualify. If they qualified, they must be able to do the job safely. And if the bar is a little bit different in the US, then the issue is much bigger than just being the EI hiree. So yeah, I don't agree with this. And like she mentioned, 45,000 to fly that day, and they just had one incident in God knows how many years. It just proves that the aviation industry is pretty safe, and I don't believe in this DEI hiring on the safety critical position like air traffic controller. And yet I still keep thinking about that pilot and how it's a safety issue.
the FAA website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, and there's a long list of other disabilities. And if you have any of those, you qualify for the position of controller. And that too is misleading. Look, he is pulling language that did exist on the FAA's DEI website. That language is certainly there, but they were speaking about a broader commitment to not discriminating against people with disabilities across the federal government. And as we know, there are laws on the books that make it illegal to discriminate against someone because of disabilities. But on the FAA website, it also states that if you are going to be an air traffic controller, you have to pass a medical examination, a security investigation, an FAA air traffic pre-employment skills assessment, and you also have to attend the academy. And the academy is quite stringent. And the bottom line is, if you don't have the skills to pass through the air traffic control academy, you are not directing planes in the tower. So that was misleading.
Not sure how to process it.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I said. You might get hired, even though I don't think they would hire anyone with mental disorder or something like that for the air traffic position. They might hire them for some other safety critical position, but definitely not air traffic controller. And yeah, there's so many hoops, so much training, qualifying, all of that, that if you're just there because you're DEI hiree, you wouldn't be able to pass it. So yeah, just to summarize it. So again, what happened Wednesday 29th, 21 o'clock, the Black Hawk helicopter, which is an Army helicopter, had a collision with commercial aircraft. The commercial aircraft was carrying about 60 passengers. Unfortunately, there are no survivors. The Black Hawk helicopter was short one crew. According to policies, they're supposed to fly in 4 just to have 360 view all around the aircraft. So that was mistake number 1 that happened, or error number 1. not enough crew. And the second issue was that the Black Hawk was flying in altitude around 350 feet when they were pretty much permitted to fly, or they were directed to fly in altitude 200 feet. So that led to the collision with the aircraft coming from pretty much 3 o'clock comparing to the Black Hawk. And there was the third thing that could have prevented this incident. Apparently, we didn't hear the tapes, but apparently the air traffic controller asked the Black Hawk pilot if he can see the CRJ aircraft, which is identification of the specific aircraft. And the Black Hawk pilot said, yes, I see them, without confirming that they're talking about the same aircraft. So obviously the confirmation should have come from the air traffic controller and from the pilot. Like, we hear it every time in the safety critical positions. If you're unsure, ask, double check. That could have prevented the crash as well. So again, incredibly sad thing that happened. And me as a former flight attendant, I would never even think that it's possible that something like this happens. Most critical phases of the flight, takeoff, landing, this happened during the landing, but never in my life I would think that the aircraft will hit the helicopter. And yeah, no survivors, and literally about 5 minutes away from hitting the runway. So it's incredibly sad situation, and I feel for the families of all the victims.